What if the people you trusted most, the family you married into, revealed their true faces the moment your husband was gone? The day after Ethan Miller's funeral, Sarah Miller, 37, drove back to the Victorian home she and her husband had shared. Her eyes were still swollen from grief, her heart hollow with loss, yet she clung to the thought that at least the house, their home, would be a safe place to mourn. But when she arrived, her worst nightmare unfolded. The locks had been changed overnight. She stood frozen on the front steps as the heavy oak door creaked open, not to welcome her, but to reveal her father-in-law, Mr. Henry, flanked by his sons Jason and Kevin. Inside, movers carried furniture out, as if the house already belonged to someone else. With a booming voice filled with authority and disdain, Mr. Henry declared, "This property reverts to Blood family now. You were just passing through. Pack your bags and get out." His words sliced through Sarah like a knife. Confused and trembling, Sarah tried to remind him that this had been her home with Ethan, that she had shared 8 years of her life here. But Mr. Henry only sneered, insisting she had married Ethan for money, not love. To him, she was nothing but a gold digger, a parasite feeding off their family legacy. Jason smirked coldly, and Kevin avoided her gaze, but their silence was as cruel as their father's words. Every piece of furniture hauled past her felt like another part of her life being ripped away. Sarah's 8 years of enduring the Colemans' coldness suddenly crystallized into one undeniable truth. They had never accepted her, and with Ethan gone, they had no reason to pretend anymore. On the steps of what had been her sanctuary, Sarah's world collapsed. The Miller family had turned her grief into exile, forcing her to face the unthinkable. She was widowed, homeless, and utterly betrayed by those who called themselves family. What if every dinner, every holiday, every smile was only a mask hiding contempt for who you are? For Sarah, the 8 years of her marriage to Ethan were not just a union of love, but also a constant battle for dignity within the Coleman household. From the very beginning, Mr. Henry and his wife, Caroline, made it clear that Sarah did not belong. As a hard-working nurse, Sarah had built her life on compassion and service, but to them, she was simply not our kind of people. They never missed an opportunity to remind her that Ethan came from a generational line of property owners and professionals. At family dinners, Caroline's barbed remarks delivered with a polite smile were daggers dressed in silk. "Oh, Sarah, you must be exhausted working those long hospital shifts. It's such a shame Ethan married beneath his potential." The whispers became louder when prenuptial agreements were mentioned. Mr. Henry insisted, over and over, that Ethan must protect the family's legacy from Sarah. Though Ethan refused, the implication was clear. They believed she was after money, not love. Sarah endured backhanded comments at gatherings, subtle exclusions during holidays, and outright hostility when the topic of inheritance surfaced. Jason and Kevin, her brothers-in-law, followed their parents' lead, cold stares, mocking smirks, and a refusal to ever call her family. Yet through it all, Sarah stayed, not out of weakness, but out of love for Ethan. He was her anchor, her partner, the man who believed in her worth when his family would not. She told herself their cruelty didn't matter as long as Ethan was by her side. But deep down, each insult, each rejection, carved invisible scars, and when Ethan died, those scars reopened, bleeding into the nightmare that was only just beginning. Sometimes the cruelest truths aren't shouted, they're whispered when they think you can't hear. It was supposed to be a joyful night, a wedding that briefly brought the fractured Coleman family together. The string lights glowed warmly in the garden, music drifted through the air, and laughter carried across the tables. But for Sarah, that evening became a moment she would never forget. Stepping away from the noise to catch her breath, she passed by a side corridor leading to the catering area. Voices drifted out, familiar, low, and filled with a confidence that froze her in place. Baphomet. Mr. Henry's tone was unmistakable. Once Ethan's gone, all of this houseland, the clinic, it reverts to where it belongs. Blood family. That nurse won't stand a chance. Jason chuckled, raising his glass. Exactly. She's got no claim. She'll have to pack her bags whether she likes it or not. Kevin leaned in, his voice casual yet cutting. The trick is getting her to leave without a scene. Maybe we give her a timeline, make it seem like we're being generous. Either way, she go quietly. She doesn't have the fight in her. Every word struck Sarah like a blow. They weren't speculating about the future, they were planning it, coldly, as if her marriage, her love, her life with Ethan meant nothing. Her heart pounded in her chest. For 8 years she had endured their disdain, hoping one day they might accept her. But here, it was, laid bare. They had never seen her as family. To them, she was temporary, disposable. Sarah slipped back into the crowd unnoticed, the laughter and music now sounding cruelly out of place. That night, beneath the fairy lights and champagne toasts, Sarah carried a truth heavier than any secret. Her in-laws were already preparing her expulsion, and they were waiting for the moment Ethan's health would falter. What she didn't know then was that Ethan himself had already begun preparing for the storm his family would unleash. Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones spoken in whispers between husband and wife, when the rest of the world is asleep. That night, Sarah lay restless beside Ethan. The cruel words she had overheard still echoed in her ears. Finally, unable to bear the silence, she turned to him. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling, "do you know what your father and brothers are saying about me, about us?" Ethan's face darkened. He sat up slowly, running a weary hand through his hair. His silence told her everything before he even spoke. "I know," he admitted softly. "I've known for years." Sarah's breath caught. "For years." He nodded, shame in his eyes. "From the very beginning, Sarah. From the day I told them we were engaged. They never saw you for who you are. To them, you were just an outsider, someone unworthy of carrying the family name. They've been waiting for me to be gone so they could erase you." The words hit her like stones, but beneath the pain there was something else, a flicker of anger. "And you didn't tell me." "I wanted to protect you," Ethan said, taking her hand. "I thought if I bore their scorn alone, you could be spared. But I was wrong. You overhearing them tonight, it proves what I've feared all along. They won't stop until you're pushed out with nothing." Sarah felt tears welling up, but Ethan's grip tightened, grounding her. His expression changed, resolute, almost defiant. "That's why I've already begun taking steps. I made a will years ago, leaving everything to you. But after hearing them tonight, I realize a will alone isn't enough. I need to build something stronger, a tight, undeniable." They cling to this archaic notion of blood inheritance, but the law doesn't work that way, and I'll make sure it never will, not for them. Sarah stared at him, caught between heartbreak and awe. He had been silently fighting a battle she didn't even know was raging. Sarah then whispered, his voice breaking, "You've given me a love they could never understand, and I'll make sure, no matter what happens to me, they will never take that from you." In that moment, Sarah realized that while the Coleman family plotted against her, Ethan was plotting for her. His confession wasn't just about their cruelty, it was about his determination to shield her, even if it meant standing against his own blood. That night, the bond between them deepened into something unshakable. Sarah finally saw what Ethan's love truly meant, not just devotion in life, but protection in death. Love may be tender, but when tested, it can be forged into armor. Ethan sat at the edge of the bed, his breathing shallow but his voice steady. Sarah listened in stunned silence as he revealed what he had been quietly constructing behind the scenes, not a wall of bricks, but a fortress of law and foresight. "I knew from the day we married that my family would never accept you," Ethan confessed, his eyes locking with hers. "So, I made sure you could never be erased from my life or from what we built together." He explained the first step, joint ownership with right of survivorship. Not long after their wedding, Ethan had gone to the county clerk's office with his attorney, Mr. Thompson, the Victorian home, the land surrounding it. Even the veterinary practice old deeds had been amended. With joint ownership, there would be no courtroom battle, no probate delay. The moment Ethan passed, everything would flow directly to Sarah, automatically and indisputably. Sarah gasped softly. She had no idea such protection existed, much less that Ethan had secured it years ago. Next came the comprehensive will. Ethan had left nothing ambiguous, no cracks for his father or brothers to slip through. "Everything," he said firmly. "The practice I bought outright from my father, the accounts, the investments, even the antiques, every last item is yours." He had even listed sentimental details, the wedding china, the garden bench he and Sarah had restored together. "I wanted the record to show that I saw you as my equal in every corner of our life," he whispered. But Ethan's most powerful safeguard was not financial, it was personal. He reached for a folder in the drawer and placed it in Sarah's trembling hands. Inside was a 2-page notarized letter, signed and witnessed, written in his own steady handwriting. In it, Ethan documented, in painful clarity, the years of scorn and alienation Sarah had endured at the hands of his family. He described their insults, their schemes, their obsession with blood inheritance. And most importantly, he explained why he chose to leave everything to Sarah, because she had stood by him with love, dignity, and loyalty when his family had only offered cruelty. "This isn't just paperwork, Sarah," Ethan said, his voice breaking. "It's my testimony. Long after I'm gone, this will speak for me. If they try to paint you as greedy, this letter will tell the truth. It was them, not you, and I chose you." Tears blurred Sarah's vision as she clutched the folder to her chest. For the first time since the whispers at the wedding, she felt not like a widow-to-be standing on the edge of ruin, but like a woman shielded by her husband's love so enduring that it had been converted into legal armor. In that quiet bedroom, Ethan's fortress revealed itself not just as documents and deeds, but as a final vow that his family's cruelty would never outlive him. When greed sharpens its teeth, only iron laws can keep it at bay. 6 weeks after Ethan's private confession to Sarah, life dealt its cruelest blow, a terminal diagnosis. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The words fell like stones in the sterile hospital room, crushing the air between them. Sarah clutched Ethan's hand, fighting the sting of tears. But Ethan's eyes, though dimmed by pain, were sharp with determination. "We don't have time," he whispered. "We have to finish this now." Within days, Mr. Thompson was at their kitchen table, folders spread across the worn oak surface. Every detail of Ethan's legal fortress was reviewed, reinforced, and finalized. Yet the attorney raised one more weapon to strengthen their defenses: the no contest clause. "This clause," Mr. Thompson explained carefully, "means that if anyone, your father, your brothers, anyone dares to challenge your will, they lose everything. Even the smallest token they might have hoped for will be stripped away." Ethan's lips curved into a grim smile. "Perfect. Let them try." Without hesitation, he instructed Thompson to include it. As his illness progressed, the veil between politeness and greed within the Coleman family dissolved completely. Mr. Henry began making unannounced visits, striding through the house as if it were already his. Jason and Kevin carried notebooks, scribbling down lists of valuables, the grandfather clock in the hallway, the medical equipment in Ethan's practice, even Sarah's jewelry. They debated openly in front of Sarah about what goes where once she was gone. It wasn't just invasive, it was cruel. On one occasion, Sarah overheard Caroline mutter, "She'll be out within the month. Might as well measure the curtains now." Sarah bit her lip until it bled, saying nothing, because Ethan's fragile body rested just a room away. She refused to burden him with every vile word, though she knew he sensed it all. Their behavior only strengthened Ethan's resolve. Despite the nausea, the weakness, the weight melting from his body, he insisted on signing every page of every document himself, his hand trembling but determined. Each signature was an act of defiance, a statement louder than words: "You will not win." Late one night, Ethan looked at Sarah with weary eyes. "They think they're circling like vultures, but they don't know I've already clipped their wings. The claws, the deeds, the letter. You won't just survive them, Sarah. You'll defeat them." Sarah squeezed his hand, her heart breaking and swelling at the same time. For the first time, she realized Ethan's love was not only emotional but strategic. He was orchestrating his final movements like a general preparing for battle, ensuring that when he was gone, the battlefield would already be rigged in her favor. The family's obsession with possessions blinded them, but soon they would face the one thing they could never outmaneuver: Ethan's foresight and the iron grip of the law. The dead cannot speak, but their words can still burn the living. It happened on a gray morning, the kind where the air itself felt heavy with foreboding. Sarah returned from the grocery store only to find the Coleman men already inside the house, their boots scuffing across the hardwood floors. Jason and Kevin were hauling Ethan's veterinary equipment out the door, while Mr. Henry rifled through Ethan's desk drawers as if he owned the place. The locks, which they themselves had forcibly replaced weeks earlier, now meant nothing. They acted like kings reclaiming a stolen castle. Sarah froze in the doorway, grocery bags slipping from her hands. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her voice trembling more with fury than fear. Henry turned, his face smug. "What we should have done the day Ethan married you. This house was never yours. Neither was he." Her chest tightened, but Sarah was no longer the same woman who silently endured 8 years of their cruelty. She reached for her phone. "Then you can explain that to Mr. Thompson." Within an hour, the sharp knock at the door announced the attorney's arrival. Mr. Thompson stepped inside, briefcase in hand, his calm but commanding presence instantly shifting the room's balance of power. He scanned the half-empty shelves and furniture dragged into the hallway. His eyes narrowed. "I suggest you put everything back," he said evenly. Jason scoffed. "On what grounds? She's not blood. We are." Mr. Thompson set his briefcase on the table and began pulling out neatly tabbed documents. His voice was measured, each word slicing the silence like a blade. "Under Virginia law, joint tenancy with right of survivorship means every property deed Ethan signed passes directly to his wife, Sarah Miller. No probate, no discussion." He lifted another paper. "This will executed, notarized, and witness confirms the transfer of all assets, house practice, accounts, investments, everything you've touched. Today belongs not to you, but to Sarah Miller." The room fell silent, but Thompson wasn't finished. He pulled out one final envelope, sealed in thick parchment, Ethan's handwriting on the front. "And then there's this." Sarah's heart squeezed as Thompson broke the seal. His voice grew firm, resonant, as he read Ethan's words aloud. It wasn't just a legal document, it was a condemnation. Ethan described in painstaking detail the years of malice Sarah endured, Caroline's whispered insults, Henry's threats, Jason and Kevin's plans to evict her before his body was even cold. Every sentence was a mirror, forcing them to look upon their cruelty. Jason's face flushed crimson. Kevin stared at the floor. But it was Henry, the patriarch, who trembled with rage and shame as Thompson reached the final passage. "To my wife, Sarah Miller, I leave everything, because you endured everything. To my family, this is not theft, but justice. And should you contest it, know that you will lose not only the case, but even the chance to inherit a single penny." Thompson closed the letter with deliberate calm. "That, gentlemen, is a no-contest clause. If you fight this, you forfeit any legal standing you might imagine you have." The weight of Ethan's words crushed the room. The swagger drained from Henry's face, replaced by the pale realization that his son had outmaneuvered him, even from the grave. The brothers muttered curses under their breath, but dared not speak louder. Within hours, the furniture was carried back inside. The locks they had changed were replaced again, this time paid for by the very men who had sought to expel her. Neighbors, who had once whispered in approval of the Coleman family's prestige, now murmured in scandal at their downfall. Sarah stood by the window as they drove away, their shoulders slumped, their empire of entitlement collapsing under the weight of one man's foresight. Ethan had not only shielded her, he had delivered a final, devastating blow to the legacy of cruelty that bore his name. For the first time since his death, Sarah smiled, not out of triumph, but out of freedom. Ethan's final act had secured her life, her dignity, and her future. And the Coleman family, they were left with nothing but the bitter taste of their own arrogance.